here we go. Hi, everyone. I'm Taylor Harrington. I think we have all exchanged messages before, so I'm seeing lots of familiar faces in here. But I'm your head of community, and I am so glad you're here with us for today's session that is all about zooming out and thinking more intentionally about where your business is heading. So we are joined by Sam Alvita, who's the founder of Work Rewritten, a platform dedicated to helping people and organizations make sense of change and design future-ready paths forward. So Sam also serves as the director of learning experience design at Masterclass and brings a unique blend of design, psychology, coaching, and education into the way that she approaches strategy. So what I really appreciate about Sam's work is that she doesn't treat the future as something that is abstract or overwhelming. Instead, she makes it really tangible. So she helps founders notice the early signals that are already here across work, AI, culture, and then translate them into clear, grounded decisions that they can make today. So this session is all about stepping out of reactive mode and building the muscle of anticipating change so that you can evolve your business with intention rather than consistently catching up. So if you've been moving quickly and making decisions in the moment, this is an opportunity to pause, zoom out, and reconnect to that longer term perspective, one that really keeps your business resilient and aligned as things continue to shift. So Sam, so excited to have you here and sharing with the Dreamers and Doers community in this way. So let's go ahead and get into it. I'll pass the mic on over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Taylor. And so nice to meet you all. I actually don't think I've been in many group calls with any of you. So
I
this
love
is a
that.
treat as well for me to get to meet some new folks. Um, but yeah, so today we're going to be talking about designing your business for the future. This is a topic that I feel extremely passionate about, but also is one that seems a little bit absent from a lot of the entrepreneurial spaces. So very, very big in some of these corporate spaces, but less so in the spaces many of us are in. So I'm glad to bring a new strategy to you all. And I was joking with Taylor at the beginning of this. I'm terrible at watching the chat while I'm speaking. So if you have questions, feel free to drop them in there. She'll come off mute and check in. And then there will be some interactive moments where you'll be typing things into the chat. I'll cue those, but just know that if I'm missing things, my bad. Taylor will fill us in. Okay, so like Taylor said, I have worked at a couple of big organizations in a creative capacity, so Masterclass and IDEO, and this practice is one that we do a lot. And it's essentially if you're asked by a client to create something that's at the very front of a market, how do you figure out what the front of the market is? And it's something that is trickier than it seems in some ways and much more simple than it seems in others. And it's based on this practice called futures thinking, which we'll dive into today. But yeah, so I'm bringing kind of this corporate lens from IDEO and Masterclass, and then also the lens through my own work, which is Work Rewritten, which is helping people figure out how to navigate their careers into this future. We've had a very tumultuous space in the career space for a lot of folks this year. The job market's changing super quickly. So people are looking for those resources and again, wanted to provide those, which is where I do that through my work and then eventually my book, which will be coming out in 2027. Okay, so today we'll cover what futuring is, so how to do this and how to make better decisions for your business, how to spot change early. So there are always these little signals all around us for what is about to happen, and how to look for them and how to capitalize on them as well. So if there is something in your particular industry that you're seeing coming down the pipeline, you can be like, I see this trend, I'm going to jump on this so I'm more advanced, more ready, more capable of handling the challenges of the people I'm going to be serving later on. Then we'll talk about how to test that strategy against multiple future possibilities. Again, we're in a time of a lot of change, a lot of uncertainty. How do we make sure we're making good choices and good investments for our business so that we are successful for many years to come? How to avoid bandwagoning. Again, super tricky always, but how to separate what a real shift is from maybe like a temporary hype cycle. And then some routines for how you can integrate this into your business in a really low touch but high impact way. So first, let's start by defining what this is. So there, as you all know, there are three major forces present for all of us today. One, technology acceleration. I personally can't have a conversation without AI coming up in some capacity with my work. It is here, it is present, it is something that we are all handling in various forms. Along with that, we have automation, new tools, etc. Very obvious. And then we always are dealing with shifting consumer behavior. So, what our audiences trust, what they buy, how they discover us, is so different than it was 5 years ago, and even different than it was a year ago. Hearing more and more entrepreneurs being like, there's so much noise that I'm trying to sort through right now. Again, very common. It's something a lot of people are feeling. And then finally, we have lower barriers to entry, which is fantastic. There are more and more people coming into spaces, more founders, creators, small businesses, people with portfolio careers, who are entering this space. Again, great. We've all benefited from this, but it also makes some of the choices we make potentially shift for the future. So no one can predict the future though, right? That's a thing? So when people hear the term futures thinking, they'll kind of think of this like crystal ball approach of like, we're going to look into this magic framework and it will tell us exactly what's going to happen. Um, and yeah, that's not quite what we're doing here. What we're doing is more like forecasting. So think of yourself more as like a weather person, trying to figure out exactly what will happen next. So in the same way that people try to predict the stock market, the weather, guess what tech will dominate. We want to be functioning at that level. So understanding what is probably going to happen and the many different ways that it could potentially happen, so we can make decisions that are resilient across those possibilities. And again, be optimized for whatever we think is probably going to come next. So this practice essentially just allows us to make better bets about the future, exploring what could happen, what is likely to happen, and what we want to happen, so we can build businesses that are leading into the future. Okay, so this is how most entrepreneurs do this without this practice. I have absolutely been a person who does this, so know that you're in good company if you're identifying with any of these things. But so when you're an entrepreneur, you're entering into a space that has some unknowns to you. So potentially you have some things that you know super well, those that are very aligned with your business. And then there are other pieces. For me, it was social media where I was like, what am I doing? Like, this is not my space at all. I don't know what I'm doing. You have all these different platforms, again, so much noise. And so what we do is we look for resources from people that are doing it really well, or we try to mimic something that we see in some capacity. So it's like, this person posts 5 times a week. I guess I should post 5 times a week because they did that and seems to have worked out. And you start to apply these playbooks to your own business. And the challenge with that is that by the time you have that playbook, you're in some capacity reacting reactively. So maybe that strategy worked for that person, but with how quickly things are changing, it might not be something super reliable that will hold up for you and your business as you move into the future. So social media again is a big one. So like early days of the platform when you had Instagram, TikTok, Substack, at the beginning there weren't as many creators, and there wasn't a super clear playbook. So anyone who was on it was doing a lot of experimenting, testing, learning in real time. And eventually those strategies became visible, formed these algorithms, and then those strategies are published by the creators of like what you should do. And then the algorithm changes, the platform becomes more saturated, and all of a sudden the advantage is starting to move somewhere else. And the people who are at the forefront of that advantage are taking the next steps forward that they're not publishing about yet. And the opportunity window has already started closing. So as an entrepreneur, again, it's really hard to not be reactive, but it's just a matter of figuring out like what is old information and what is new information and what is information potentially that isn't super visible or released yet. So how do we actually practice this? So throughout the next few slides, I'll give you one very specific framework we use, but know that there are many, many others. And I have a couple slides in here where I'll list out where you can find all of these, who to look for, who's spotting the trends, who is practicing featuring at a really high level. So again, we're going to talk through one. Know that there are many. Feel free to take screenshots, explore on your own. But at a very basic level, we can think that futures thinking moves sequentially through layers. And there are four very specific layers as part of this ladder that we can think of. So the first layer is signals, which are those small indicators of change. For a lot of us as small business owners, we're thinking about these as like unusual customer behaviors, new products that are coming out, emerging cultural patterns, what is hot in terms of what people are talking about, and then in some cases, depending on your industry, regulatory shifts. So those are signals. Signals are combined to form trends. So you combine signals in various different ways, you'll start to see patterns, and those patterns are trends. And trends are exactly what we think of them to be, like something that is becoming very popular, is how people are going to start acting, purchasing, that kind of thing. Trends, though, stop only at the second layer. So a lot of people will stop there. They'll start thinking about how can I take advantage of a various trend? Great. But we want to take this two steps further. So the third are futures. So if we were to follow these trends out in 5 years, 10 years, what starts to become possible if those trends continued? And then finally, we have solutions, which are the products, services, or strategies designed to make sense for that particular future reality. So let's talk through a little bit about how we can think about this. So most entrepreneurs who win early are working at this signal level, as opposed to this much larger playbook level. So signals, again, these small, early, often bizarre behaviors that most people ignore are where a lot of our success can start from. So they pay attention to the behaviors the market has formed around them and act on those signals. So let's talk about what this looks like in an example most of us probably know. So Airbnb noticed a series of signals, capitalized on those series of signals, and then was able to become the massive company that it is today. So in the late 2000s, so like 2006, 7, there was a small but noticeable behavior that started appearing. So people were renting out spare rooms in their house to strangers online. And at the time, this was very, very bizarre. And again, super niche. So couch surfing was one of the big companies. Like you could stay at someone's house for free. Craigslist room rentals. Again, sounds so sketchy to me in practice, but was becoming more and more popular. And travelers willing to stay at private rooms instead of hotels. People were reacting to the rising cost of hotels and just wanted different ways to travel without it being super expensive. So most hospitality companies completely ignored these behaviors because they were like, this looks small and messy and we want nothing to do with this. We're going to keep being the premium brands that we are. We don't need to pay attention to any of this. But then for the entrepreneurs working at the signal level, this is a sign of a massive business opportunity. So Airbnb founders noticed the signals that people were renting space, but they were also willing to trust strangers on digital platforms. So that behavioral shift of I will give my information to someone online in exchange for a service was the real signal that they decided to move towards. That trend eventually became an entire economic model in the late 2000s. So Airbnb, Uber, TaskRabbit, Turo, the whole host of players that we now interact with all the time. But the point here is that if Airbnb wanted to make money off of giving people a place to stay for the night and it followed that trend as like, this is the way people do it, they probably would have copied a playbook from the hotel industry. Maybe investing in hotels, opening hotels. You get the idea. The point is they didn't do that and they built a company around a signal that people had missed, and now one of the biggest companies in the hospitality industry. So what does that mean for us as founders? Um, Again, if we want to be dominant players in our various industries, it means we're going to need strategies that make us see signals in the same way that Airbnb saw them. And again, be ready to follow playbooks maybe that are not directly aligned to what we think they would be aligned to, and be able to step outside of our particular industries and look at some different things. So we'll talk through how to do that momentarily. So let's dig into, again, how to do this, how to identify these signals, these trends and drivers shaping the next wave of markets for you. So how I generally tell people to frame their own thinking around this is the entrepreneurs who are good at noticing signals can experiment sooner, build capabilities earlier, and capture emerging opportunities earlier. So let's look at one that's coming up a lot these days, and that is Substack. If anyone here has a Substack or follows someone on Substack, you'll probably, I would assume you probably started following them within the last 2 to 3 years. So again, very, very new, very niche, or used to be niche, not anymore. But so signals for Substack is writers were leaving traditional media in 2017. Small paid newsletters were gaining traction, and audiences were willing to pay for niche expertise. So they wanted to be able to find very specific information from very specific creators. And the larger traditional media companies were not offering people the opportunity to do that. So the trend became the direct relationships between creators and audiences. That was emerging in 2017 to 2019. So Substack saw this as a potential future of independent media business, created the solution that is now one of the quickly rising social media companies and creator subscription audience first brands that we all know. So 3 places to look for signals again. We've got customer behavior, technology tools, and industry structure. So customer behavior, are your particular customers behaving differently than they used to? This could be asking for faster turnaround, wanting more flexible pricing, discovering products through different channels. There are a million different ways that people are interacting right now. I know for some of the entrepreneurs I've worked with recently, they've noted that people come to them later. So they might be experimenting with solutions via AI first and then coming to them. So they have a different entry point than they used to. Many different ways customer behavior can show this. Technology tools. So are new tools changing how work is getting done? Again, this is a big one right now. AI, automation, new platforms constantly coming out. This will continue to evolve most of our businesses. And then industry structure. So is there a way that businesses are operating in your field that is shifting? New competition, new pricing models, new distribution channels. You get the idea. So I'm going to ask you to do this by yourselves in a second, but I'll illustrate with my own company first so you guys can get a sense for like how this is done. But again, think as I'm talking about this about these 3 things that might be coming up in your business. So what is changing customer behavior, changing technology tools, and changing industry structure for your particular work? Okay, so for me, I started in the career coaching space and in the design space. And I wanted to, even back then, create a modern feel to career coaching. Again, it felt more dated. I wanted to create something new. So I've been doing this for probably 5 or 6 years. And in the last year or so, I was noticing more and more of my customers were coming in later to decision processes. Again, experimenting with AI or online tools before they came to me. So usually I guess at the beginning, I'd have more customers who are like, I need to make a change. I'm going to outsource this immediately. Now it's like, I'm going to make a change. I'm going to see if I can do it for free, and then I'm going to outsource it. There was a growing demand for flexible coaching formats, on-demand guidance, increased demand for downloadable resources, frameworks, and templates that they could use on their own. And then clients wanting tools that they could use independently between our conversations so that they could have a higher touch model to work through whatever they're working through without necessarily needing to schedule a million sessions with me. And then you combine that with the market signals of today. So there are major layoffs across technology, knowledge industries, careers are becoming less predictable, fewer stable long-term roles, so many things in the career space. And so workers and people looking for jobs are feeling increasingly more responsible for their own career strategy. And then you combine that with technology signals. So rapid adoption of AI tools, entry-level tasks being automated by AI, professionals expected to produce more content faster, businesses being able to start at much lower costs. This whole storm of things meant that my business needed to change in a pretty significant way in a fairly short period of time. And instead of being like, oh no, I can't offer my same career coaching, let me focus more on my sales, let me focus more on some of the things I did in the past. Instead, I was like, great, let's do it. If people need these resources, how can I build these resources as quickly as possible to allow for the people who are coming and working with me to get what they needed. So, um, if you want to put this in the chat, think about one signal category for each category of your own business. So, what's a shift in customer behavior you've been noticing, a shift in technology you've been noticing, or a shift in your particular industry that you have been noticing? And I actually will pay attention to the chat this time. Um, so yeah, go ahead and think through this and drop it in the chat when you're ready. I know this is a lot to think through, so I'll give about 20 to 30 more seconds and totally fine if you don't have all these down or haven't thought through all this yet. Um, Feel free to take a screenshot and think about this as we keep it moving.
Also, if you have an answer to maybe one or two of these, but you're stumped on one, maybe just share the ones that are feeling more alive.
Great addition. Well, how about this? We'll keep it moving. I know a lot to think through, but again, if it comes up later, you want to chat through something specific to your industry, we can come back to this. But now
Can we
let's
talk
move
through
forward.
one?
Yes, let's do it.
I'm noticing a lot in press. I'm a publicist. Let me come on camera. I'm a publicist. So one of the things I'm noticing, pitching has gotten tougher. One of the reasons why is because no names mentioned, somebody's buying up all the media. So because of the type of pitches I have, they're more careful about what they are going to publish or interview. So that's one. So that's one big shift I've noticed. So of course, the shift in technology is AI, but I am trying to figure out how to use it for me as a publicist. And then consumer behavior, that's a tough one. It really and truly is, because you see people, they're moving in one direction, but then you see other people like, I'm tired of social media, I'm going in this direction. So that's kind of hard to determine, because some people are trying to unplug and trying to get away from technology, and then while others are trying to hold on to it. So those are my three that came to my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's even talk through the last one of like okay, so say people are moving away from technology, and we've seen signals of that, right? Where there's more and more people. I don't know. I saw articles in the New York Times about like people embracing the like dumb phones again.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
that's a big one. So say that more and more people start to do that. That's a signal for you. And then how do you as a publicist then reach those people? And this is a tricky one, right? Because it's like it's going to take more brainstorming, more thinking through like how do you do that? I don't know if there's an answer, but if that's where we're headed, do you have any initial ideas off the top of your head for that?
If people are moving in that industry, well, let me tell you this. I've had some thoughts about this, and I probably shouldn't talk out loud about it, but it doesn't matter. It's the generational aspect of all of this. Um, I'm a Gen Xer, and I've worked with boomers. I've worked with millennials, particularly older millennials who are now trying to claim they're Gen Xers, which I think is hilarious now. I do. I'm like, what happened so you became a Gen Xer? But anyway, that's another story. So I am thinking about moving towards the generational lines and being able to reach them. So one of the things, people who are trying to go back to those phones, that's kind of in my generation. I've been seeing a lot of that happening in my generation. So I'm thinking along lines of maybe move. I'm still in DEI, but I have to move away from it because politically it's a hot mess. But maybe talk more about generations.
Yeah, that's a great example. And I think that's exactly the way to be thinking about this, especially at a base level, instead of like, it's harder to pitch, so I'm just going to pitch more and hope for the best. Um, maybe that would work. I don't know, but
It's tough.
probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like maybe wasted time when maybe there's a new pivot you could take that would allow you to more effectively capitalize on what sounds like a really fantastic skill and insight you already have. Um, so I know, again, super high level, and it's hard to be like, this is the exact thing. But like,
Right.
what I tell people to do for signals is even like get out sticky notes and be like, okay, what is all of the signals that I'm seeing, and really like put one on each sticky note, and be like, okay, this is clearly coming up a lot. This is something I haven't thought about yet. And then in the next section, we'll talk about how to pair them into trends. But
Mhm.
it's helpful even to just literally like surface what's coming up for your industry and what you might be able to do. I think a lot of people don't necessarily even take the time to write down all the signals of what's coming up. So hopefully that's helpful.
No, it is.
And it's
It
tricky.
totally is.
Okay,
And
awesome.
then you brought something else up earlier that made me think about it. So with Substack.
Oh yeah, and a great Substack is getting hotter by the day, so always good for a lot of us in many different industries. All right. So let's talk about trends because I think this will feel like it will connect some of these signal thoughts into, again, something we can act on. So signals say, for example, we're seeing like layoffs across a lot of industries, AI tools replacing tasks, professionals building personal brands, that kind of thing. Those are all signals. And then we're going to take it a step deeper and make combinations of those signals into trends. So the trend from those combination of signals would be careers are becoming more self-directed and adaptive. So how to spot trends? So trends form when multiple signals begin pointing in the same direction. So when it happens, we'll begin to see patterns forming that suggest that something much larger is shifting in the market. So for something to be a trend, it cannot be, let's say viral, right? So something that goes viral, very short period of time. Maybe multiple things in the same category that are going viral can suggest a trend, but usually trends show much, much larger cultural shifts that are happening over time. So let's take a look at a company that saw a trend before it was obvious. So Canva, again, back to the late 2010s, or late 2000s, early 2010s. So like 2010, 2011, 2009. So social media marketing was exploding, blogs were growing rapidly, small businesses needed graphics, signals. Okay, great. But creating visuals still required professional tools at that phase of business. So, and Photoshop and Illustrator were too complex for a lot of people. So either a company had to have someone figure out how to use them, outsource that talent to a graphic designer or someone who could do comms design, usually very costly, or they were like publishing PowerPoint graphics and like basic web editors, which were not looking so great. And so for the people trying to design things themselves, it wasn't going that well. And so this showed that a signal was that people needed design capabilities, even though they weren't designers. And then the creators of Canva started to see a trend forming, which was the rise of like templates and drag and drop tools. So like Squarespace, template marketplaces, that kind of thing. So the trend that Canva identified and capitalized on, again, to become a massive company is this idea of the professionalization of non-professionals. So people needed ways to produce professional looking work without formal training to keep up with social media. So marketers needed to make graphics, founders needed to make pitch decks, teachers were building new types of presentations. And so Canva was like, the problem isn't necessarily that we're lacking design talent or the design talent marketplace isn't large enough. It's more that people needed accessible design software. Again, they didn't ride this trend. They created kind of a completely new form of how to design, make it possible for entrepreneurs, marketers, teachers. You get the idea. So this is the example of a trend coming to life. So again, 6 trends that may feel very relevant to you all right now. AI, again, gonna keep coming up. It'll keep being talked about. Expertise as a new business model is a really popular one we keep seeing. Again, lots of people in this community who exhibit that. A lot of small businesses, customers expecting really fast, high quality turnarounds. This is a trend that's going to keep continuing. Careers that are becoming portfolio based. So a lot of Dreamers and Doers members that potentially work on their own thing, but also work for someone else. And then direct relationships with customers becoming more valuable. So one thing, we'll skip over our prompt just for now. We'll go back to it. There are tons of people who do this as a full-time job of like, what are trends that are coming up and how do we use them? So this is the category you can kind of cheat on. It's great. Just go to these websites and there's a lot of stuff that'll be like, this is what we're seeing. These are topics that are coming up. This is new fashion. This is new technology. This is new whatever. And so again, feel free to screenshot this, check these out on your own. But again, there are people that track trends and tracking those people sometimes is easier than tracking the trend. So some resources here. So let's think through like which trend is most likely to reshape your business in the next 5 years. And we'll go backwards here so you can pick one of these 6 to drop in the chat or something that you've thought of. But what trend do you think is most likely to shape your business in the next 5 to 6 years? Again, drop it in the chat. Number 1 and 2. Yep. I feel that. AI. Yep. 5 and 1. Great. 2. Yeah, all over the place here. Does anyone want to come off mute and just share how you think that trend is going to impact your work, maybe immediately?
I'll share it unless somebody else will want to do it. Just real quickly. So, because of the situation that I'm in with DEI and switching over, I've had to cut back on subcontractors. I can't use them anymore. And so I have had to switch over to AI because of that reason. I'm slowly integrating maybe one person back in and might be social media because that's where I'm weakest. Not in terms of knowing how to use it, but just in terms of doing it. So I'm slowly bringing that person back in, but everybody else is gone. And I'm using AI
Yeah,
instead.
great. And how do you feel like AI or this thing that's happening to you right now is going to continue? Do you have any ideas?
I mean, which thing? You talking about the DEI?
Or let's go AI. I mean, DEI or AI, I guess. Like,
Well,
is
DEI,
there a trend?
DEI, they've
Yeah.
killed it. Even though that's another story. But with the AI piece, the thing I like about AI is a good thinking partner. That's what I love about it. So it's a great thinking partner. In terms of the writing, I still end up rewriting a lot of stuff, but it does come up with some good ideas. It really does. And I'm learning how to use it more and more effectively. Like I said, the problem with me right now is just social media posting more consistently. I just don't have the time as I am trying to keep up with my clients and PR because it's just gotten harder and harder to pitch as well. And you gave me
Yeah.
an idea with Substack because maybe that's where I need to go now is start pitching more people on Substack.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think these are all great examples where it's like challenge of today. How is it going to continue to be a challenge or not? Maybe
Mm.
again, hopefully DEI isn't like it is today in a year. Who knows? But then for AI, it seems like it's here to stay. How do we keep capitalizing on it if it is?
Right, right. But then you start thinking about the environment. So you go through all of that too.
Yes. Constant cycles, right, of all these different things. Yeah, I hear you. Um, great. Anyone else?
I'll share. So I am seeing a lot of so expertise becoming a business model is one of the trends that I noted, and I think that AI is a driver for that because it's easy for people to determine that they are an expert because they have the machine of AI behind them, and so I think that what will happen as people can, and this actually connects with the rise of micro businesses. I think as more people become experts because of AI and they build these AI expertise businesses that don't have a lot of depth, and you can tell, right, a lot of times of writing when it's just AI output and it's not kind of grounded by someone who has lived experience. I think that experts will again rise to the top as the general public becomes kind of more attuned to what a lot of folks call AI slop, right? We become attuned to the rhythm and the words and how things look the same when AI is generated. So I do believe that we'll get to the point where true expertise and experience and wisdom matters. So I know we were talking about trends. The trend is a lot of AI experts. And what I hope the flip will be that we'll see experts, true experts rise to the top because we'll get our ears become attuned to the AI kind of slop.
And TC, that is absolutely correct because when clients send me stuff from AI, I
You
laugh.
can tell.
I see,
You
I'm
know
just
it.
like, oh my God, no. They're like, this is what AI sent me, they'll send it to me like I can do this. And I'm just like, no. And I'm most of the time I ignore it because I'm like, no,
Yeah.
no, this is not how this is going to work. So eventually, hopefully, they start seeing the relevance of having a true publicist, a person who knows how to write, and also the way you have to write into the media. It's a particular skill set that AI does not know how to do this. And not to take up a lot of time, yesterday I saw an AI expert because I've been trying to watch all these AI videos so I can understand it better. And he said, "Oh, I created the press release and I ended up in Business Insider, and here's the press release." And I looked at it. It really wasn't the release, it was the subject matter that he was talking about. That's what caught the writers or the media's attention about it. It was the subject matter, which was interesting. But the press release itself, it wasn't great because I was reading through it.
Yeah, I love that. And that's a great example of a trend of like, okay, the trend maybe is AI slop. becoming a thing, how do we then get ahead of that? Make sure you're positioning your business or your own marketing or how you're speaking about your work to be ahead of that. So great examples. Thank you both for sharing. All right. Keep speeding through this. Again, resources here. Take a screenshot if you need them. Okay, so this is where we really dig into futures thinking. So we have the trends that we're talking about. So what does this actually mean for where our future is heading? And we're going to look at what they call the futures cone. This is getting super theoretical, so we'll just speed through it. But the main thing that we want to think about is the further we move into the future, the more potential options for the future exist. So if you look on that left side, we are here, again, moving into possible, preferred, probable, or plausible futures. So let's talk AI. So a possible future is anything that could technically happen, even if it seems unlikely. So take, for example, a fully AI run company with almost no human employees is a possible future. Hopefully it doesn't happen, but it is a future to keep in mind. A plausible future, which are futures that make sense for the current technology, behavior, and trends that we're seeing. So maybe small teams using AI to run much larger businesses. But again, lots of human touch points. We just have these new tools at our disposal. Probable futures. So those are futures that seem likely if current patterns continue. So AI becoming a standard productivity tool in most industries. Probably going to happen. And then preferable futures, which would look something like the future we really want to have be possible and the future that we want to create with our own businesses. So potentially like businesses using AI to free up time for our better creative and strategic work and the things we actually really want to be doing instead of whatever we don't want to be doing. For me, like expenses and spreadsheets, like give it away. I don't need it. But that would be what we call a preferable future. So again, not about predicting what future could happen. It's just understanding the range of futures available to us. So what I always tell anyone I'm coaching to think about is truly write it on a sticky note, but it's like, what happens to my business if several different futures emerge? And am I ready to be competitive in all of those different futures? Totally fine if the answer is no, but it's a good thought exercise to be like, okay, so say AI is going to have a much larger role in a lot of these larger companies. What does that mean for me and someone who's in a service business? Like, what do I have to do to be ready for that version of the world? And just, again, have it percolating. Don't have it stress you out, but just enough to be like, okay, if this happens, and then the opposite too of like, if there is a preferable future that we're building, how do I be a person who can help build that version of the future with my own business, and how am I serving people in that type of way? So fun exercise on the other end when you're like, okay, maybe we head into a much better future than we're in now. What is my role in that? Okay, so again, most businesses will assume one future and then react. This is so common. This is why a lot of companies end up not doing well. So most strategic plans people make are that markets are going to stay stable or stable-ish, that technology will change relatively slowly, and that your customers are going to behave predictably. Rapid change technically usually does not mean any of these things will be true. So it's always good to have a broader set of parameters, again, with which you're evaluating things, especially rapid technology change and potentially an unstable market, especially now. So we don't need to like really dig into this, but here are some futures for small businesses that, again, are probably going to emerge in the next few years, already are emerging. And again, something that we should all just be thinking about. So AI reducing the cost of running a business, personal brands becoming the layer of expertise that people are looking for. Small automated teams competing with larger organizations. Exciting again for those of us with small companies. And then customers expecting real-time services and content and really, really fast turnarounds. I do think is going to be something that we'll keep seeing. Okay, so let's talk about futures thinking when it goes well and goes poorly. So Blockbuster, we all know, RIP, things didn't go so well for them. And why this happened is because they were ignoring signals. So Blockbuster at the time was like a dominant model. There were all types of signals coming up, ranging from like those, what are they called? The DVD boxes you could go rent videos from that were in like Walmarts and
Was it like a
McDonald's.
red box?
Yes, red box. Yes, that. And other ways to get videos. So you didn't have to go to Blockbuster. So that was like the very first original signal. And signal after signal after signal that was like, people are not going to walk into a video store because there's new ways to do this. Then at the same time, we have Netflix, had no customers, who was like, what could be true if we didn't make people go into the Blockbuster? We'll send them DVDs in the mail. And then as Blockbuster started to fail, Netflix started to rise, and again, capitalizing on these signals and trends or ignoring those signals and trends. And now we know what happened to both of those companies. But it's a really interesting way of thinking of like, okay, how are companies again looking for things that could be probable or plausible futures, and those who are again thinking their customers are going to keep behaving the same way and everything will stay the same. Okay, so based on the trends we just discussed and the futures we just discussed, what do you think is possible for your industry 5 years from today? And again, you can pop that into the chat if you want to. We can also just think about it in our heads, but like, if I were to do the exact same business 5 years from today, what needs to be different so I can be competitive in my industry? And if you have it on the top of your head, drop it into the chat. If not, we'll just keep moving and think through it. But some examples. Most service businesses will use AI assistants to run operations, probably very possible. Or in 5 years, customers will discover experts through personal brands instead of companies. So really leaning in more to that creator economy than we already have. So, great. Thank you so much for coming. And we have about 5 minutes for everyone else, but we'll keep moving. How about that? Just to take advantage of time. So, okay, futures into strategies. The final step here, you've thought about the different futures. What are you actually going to do about it? That's what we're going to talk about next. So what I tell everyone, instead of waiting for the future to arrive and reacting to it, test it. So after we've asked the many questions we've asked, what small experiment can you create today that will let you test some version of the future that we're heading into? For example, for me, it was like, if career guidance needs to be more on demand, digitally delivered, can I make resources? Can I test a different coaching format? Can I test a new framework? What can I experiment with today? And again, see how my business and my customers react to that. Again, try new tools, new offers, new audiences, experiment with new workflows. That's a great place to start. And yeah, so I guess the final question here is, what small experiment could you run that leans into a future you think might be coming? Great thought exercise, again, to do in your own time. Okay, so I know we are running out of time and I want to make sure I share 2 very specific slides. I'll share all these. We can share all these slides out later if that's helpful. The first, though, is if you want resources to really dig into how to do this really well and really want to use it to create a super new version of your business, these are some great places to start. There's 3 books, a couple organizations to check out, and 2 reports that you can sign up for that get released yearly. I love stuff like that. It's like, just put it in my inbox. We'll handle it when it comes out. But the Future Today Institute trend reports and the State of the Future report are two really good ones if you want a very low touch way to be thinking about this. Um, and yeah, so thank you all so much. If you're interested in my work, you can follow me at By Work Rewritten or on Substack, which I publish about this kind of stuff all the time, or connect with me on LinkedIn. Always happy to answer questions or help in any way I can. So yeah, great. Any questions? I will
Well, we're
stop.
digging this questions. Thank you, Sam. That was amazing. That was such a great session, and I'm so excited. I mean, you shared so many resources, but as you can imagine, this comes up a lot on the VIP calls I have with members of how do I future-proof my business? So I'm so glad we recorded this session because I can already imagine how many times I'm going to be sharing this in the future with members as these types of questions pop up. So thank you so much for hosting this. And it's making me excited. I mean, I'm definitely going to run and grab some of those, some of those newsletters and reports to like pop into my inbox. It made me think of a book I read, and I'm blanking on the name, which is why I'm like stumbling through this, but it's, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but basically in the book, they talk about how the richest people, and not necessarily meaning like money rich, but the richest people, the people who will have the most like out of life, will be the people that learn how to spend their time most effectively and interest, like in ways that are in sync with their values, in a way that also gets them off of their devices. And so like the richest people in the world actually won't spend a lot of time on technology, but they'll have the systems working for them that allow them to do the things they want to do in their free time, etc. So anyways, this whole thing brought up like, oh, what does that mean for the future of work and how we interact? And Emily, thanks for joining us in the last couple of minutes here. We're just wrapping up. I know I'm thinking you're probably thinking it's starting this hour. We did record this session, so you will be able to go back and listen to it. TC and Victoria, before we hop, were there any specific questions you had?
No questions, but this has been fantastic. So thanks, Sam, for the prompts, the things to kind of think about, how we see our industries shifting and changing. So super helpful.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to hear it. Happy to help however I can.
Amazing. Okay, well, I think we'll wrap this up. But thanks so much, Sam. And I will see you all back in the circle. And you can follow up. I was going to grab the link, but you can follow up with Sam TC. I know that we just had our other friends drop. You can follow up with Sam in circle if you need to for any other questions. She's in there, and I will talk to you both soon. Bye, crew.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.